Hey guys, it's Brickie here. Today we have an interview with ED-209, a Chillsynth producer based out of London. It was a really insightful and awesome interview. Hope you guys enjoy. As per usual, all of his socials will be linked below. And if you want to reach out for an interview or have any recommendations for an interview, my Instagram is linked both on my account and in the description. Enjoy.
Get
Thank
it
you.
started. Um, First off, what do you prefer to be called? I've just been calling you Ed.
Ed's fine. I mean, my real name's Ben Carr, but Ed's fine.
Okay. Um, let's do that. Also, please be as open as you want. You can be
Yeah,
as
sure.
vulgar as you want. Just no slurs. That's about it.
No, that's fine. I'll have to be careful with that because I have got a bit of a potty mouth, but I'll do my best.
Yeah. Like I said, be as vulgar as you want. Just you can say cunt.
Oh,
You can
like no,
say, as long as you don't say
yeah,
any racist slurs, I think we'll
yeah,
be all
that's
right.
fine. Yeah, no, I try and avoid those generally anyway.
All right. Let's start with, how did you come up with your name?
So it's actually from a movie called RoboCop, the original RoboCop from the 80s. There's a robot in it called Ed-209. He's
Mhm.
like RoboCop's kind of nemesis in it. He's like the bad guy, and I always thought he was looked really cool. So yeah, when I was kind of getting into producing synthwave, I thought it'd be a pretty cool name. And it's funny actually because it was a really popular movie, but a lot of people don't seem to know where it came from. So yeah, it's a bit of a funny one.
I know that whenever I tried to look you up, it kept coming up with the Star Wars robot.
Oh really?
Yeah, there's a
Oh, okay.
enforcement droid 209, I believe.
Yeah,
It's
no,
the
that's
the
off that's off RoboCop.
really.
Yeah, that's from RoboCop.
Huh. Um that's cool. So, how about, what are your favorite genres to listen to, and who are your like favorite artists that you like?
So this is a bit funny actually. So my like main music that I really listen to is kind of like pop punk.
Mhm.
So like like kind of Midwest emo, that sort of thing. So but I think my favorite band of all time would be Blink 182.
Okay.
So yeah, very different from the music I produce. But like bands like Green Day, yeah, Blink, Newfound Glory, Modern Baseball. Even back like even as stuff like metal as well, like or new metal like Slipknot and things like that as well. So I've always kind of been more into rock than kind of synthwave, and then I kind of moved into synthwave about 6 7 years ago. But on the kind of chill synthwave side of it, I would say I'm a huge Hotel Pools fan.
Mhm.
He's probably my main inspiration, to be honest with you. He's really what got me into chill synth. Um, yeah, him. Four Hill's a big one as well. Eagle Eyed Tiger, Vic, all the main, all the usual
All the big
suspects.
guys, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They kind of got me into it. Um, I kind of got started listening to synthwave. Like Time Cop 1983. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what I started with, and then I kind of heard a few of these tracks by like Hotel Pools and that, and it kind of just it scratched an itch I didn't even know I had. It was like, wow, this stuff's really good. Better than the kind of neon synthwave stuff. It really hits better, and that's when I started kind of moving into the more chill synth side of things and vaporwave.
Yeah, that's really interesting, especially hearing that you like enjoy like the pop punk or the new metal, the kind of like emo bands, and then you transition into a very like chill, relaxing sort of genre. That's a really
Yeah,
interesting transition.
which which is kind of like the opposite really, because you got like pop punk, which is really kind of energetic and
Hmm.
full of energy and that sort of thing. But there's actually I kind of missed a step there actually, because when when I was, maybe it's probably about 15 20 years ago now, I started getting into drum and bass. So like jungle. I don't know if you
Yeah,
guys really listen to it that much.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I started producing music, about 20 years ago on Fruity Loops version 3, I think. I started producing drum and bass, was DJing for a bit, and then kind of fell out of love with it. So that's how I kind of got into more electronic sides of music.
That's also like even just in the electronic space, that's also a pretty drastic jump from
Yeah,
drum and bass to like vaporwave synthwave.
yeah, it really is. I mean, drum and bass is really aggressive. Hardcore kind of, hardcore kind of bass music. So it's a big departure from synthwave, chillsynth.
It is definitely not. Most people do not enjoy listening to that type of music, at least from what I've seen. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
well, that kind of answered my next question. I was going to ask if you had any uh, background in music, so it sounds like you did.
Well, yeah, I'm quite wow, what's the word? I'm quite challenged in terms of actual music theory. I I kind of bumble my way through it. So I play the guitar a bit,
Mm-hmm.
but I never really learned properly. I just kind of learned tab. So I can't read music or anything. I've only when I started producing kind of synthwave and chill synth did I actually even learn about the circle of fifths and kind of more music theory kind of stuff.
Sure.
Even how to pick a key and stay in it, sort of thing. So when it comes to music theory, when you compare me to like Crystal Cola and all the Voyage and Hotel Pools and all those guys, they're miles above me in terms of their musical ability. I kind of just bumble my way through it in the Fruity Loops piano roll and kind of see what sounds good. I don't actually really fully understand it all.
But I think there's also a beauty to that, right? Because it's you're not trying to make something perfect and exact and follow a strict code. You're kind of just sounding what's cool and going with that.
That's spot on, exactly. It kind of offers you a bit more freedom because you're not kind of thinking so much of the rules. You're just kind of thinking, well, that actually sounds good. I think actually in one of my tracks from Alpha Waves, there's a one note in it which is actually out, yeah, which is out of key with the rest of it. It actually sounds really good in the track. But someone mentioned to me, he said that one note is is not in key with the rest of the track, but for some reason it actually really works with the rest of it. So yeah, you kind of stumble across things like that, which you probably wouldn't if you were kind of abiding by the strict rules of music theory.
Um, in your opinion, what is the purpose of music? What do you derive from it? What purpose do you get from listening and creating music?
So I think there's two sides of it for me. I think there's from the listening to music, it kind of has a really visceral connection. I have a really visceral connection with music. Ever since I can remember,
Mm-hmm.
songs have just really hit me hard. Kind of trigger emotions, nostalgia, various things like that. So listening to music has always been a very kind of personal thing that I've been connected to ever since I was 4 or 5. Ever since I bought my first cassette tape because I am pretty old. Um, so yeah, that's for listening to it, it's a huge part of my life. I couldn't live without it. It's something I do every day. It's always there, which I find quite interesting because my partner, for example, she's just not into music at all. She just listens to the top 40 and can kind of take it or leave it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always interested me how people can be that disconnected from music, sort of thing. But for me, it's always been extremely, a big part of my life. But on the other side of it, the creation and the production of music has always been, something I've got into as a creative outlet. As far back as I can remember, I always had a need for a creative outlet of some kind, and music was kind of the perfect way to do that. I've hearing, for example, your Hotel Pools and people like that, thinking, "Oh, I could make my own version of that and make something really unique and new."
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like a need. I go through these waves where I almost just have to produce an album, or otherwise I'm going to go crazy. So it's definitely a requirement in my life that's always kind of been there.
That's awesome to hear. I'm listening wise, I'm the exact same way as you. I absolutely need it. I don't understand how people can go through life and not just listen to music constantly and really
It's
just take
crazy,
it
isn't
take
it?
it away. It is. It really is.
I,
Like
it's so hard for people like us to actually try and understand that perspective. Is really difficult. It just doesn't make sense to me. How can you not love it that much? How can it just be something that you take or leave? Something you just have in the car. It's really crazy.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to your personal music stuff. In your own words, how would you describe Chillsynth?
Okay. So Chillsynth to me is like what I would call the incidental music of my growing up. So it's not the kind of music you had on the radio or you heard or anything, but it was the kind of clips you would hear when you put a VHS tape in, right? You would hear kind of a synthscape would come up, as the kind of logos, Touchstone movies or whatever comes across, or my partner, my wife, sorry, makes fun of me because she says I make elevator music. But again, you step into an elevator or memories from walking through a shopping mall as a kid. It's that kind of music that was kind of ever present in the background, especially when I was growing up in the 90s.
Sure.
It was always there. And, hearing the Chillsynth again when I kind of discovered it now was like a huge nostalgia kick for my kind of childhood, because that music was everywhere, these kind of, even the vaporwave kind of jazzy style of stuff. It was all over the place, but it wasn't really something people just listened to. So I love that it's been kind of created into a genre that is that. So that's what kind of Chillsynth, I guess, means to me.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I completely agree. It invokes a ton of nostalgia, although I can't say that a whole lot because I was born in the early 2000s, but
Oh man, so young. I'm jealous.
I don't know about that one, but kind of playing off of that, how would you describe your personal style of music?
So I'd say it's evolved a fair bit.
Mm-hmm.
So from my first album, which I can't remember the name of my first album. What was it?
Liminal?
Liminal, that was it, yeah. So long ago now. Yeah, so that was, I was still kind of finding myself as a producer then. And a lot of the tracks I look back on now, and I think, God, they're awful. The production was bad. It was quite awful. But there was a few gems in there, a few ones that I listened to and I think, oh yeah, they were really good, but the others weren't so bad. But yeah, in terms of my own style, I would say currently it's more, as I mentioned to you on the messages, is kind of like trying to infuse vaporwave with chill synth. So you've got those kind of FM synths with the kind of chill synth style melodies, because I found a lot of vaporwave can be just a bit, there's no kind of hook melody that kind of draws you in, and that's one thing I always try and do in my tracks is kind of have a lead melody that kind of draws you in and kind of evokes some sort of emotion. So I guess I'm trying to kind of infuse chill synth and vaporwave. That's where I'm at right now.
I really like your description because that's pretty much exactly what I wrote down. You always make a point to make every aspect of your songs shine. Like there's no part of your song that is immensely better than another part. Like the lead melody is always pleasant to listen to, but like I forgive me for being ignorant. I don't make music, so I'm poor at describing
It's
it.
okay.
But like the bass is always loud but not obnoxious. The like the backing track whenever the lead melody is playing is still present. You can still hear it, you can understand it. I really enjoy the fact that you make a point to make everything shine and have its own spotlight.
I really appreciate those comments. That means a lot. Hearing stuff like that, hearing that kind of feedback, because that is exactly what I try and do. So it's great to hear that it's actually getting through, which is it's awesome.
Going back to Liminal, that was your debut album, came out in, what was it, mid 2020? So about 4 years ago.
2020. Yeah.
How did you feel about it pre and post release?
So are we? So you mentioned that I can be as vulgar and honest as I want during this, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. Obviously, you can censor it afterwards, but during that period in my life, I was a pretty serious drug addict.
Sure.
So I was taking a lot of opiates at the time, and that whole album is pretty much a kind of what's the word? A haze in my head. I don't really remember a whole lot of producing it. Well, I say, I was a crazy addict, but I was a functioning addict. I run my own business, etc. So it wasn't like I was living under a bridge or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't remember a whole lot of the producing it, but I do. I remember sending the tracks off to Stratford Court, never thinking in a million years that he would be interested in actually releasing it. Because he released one track of mine on one of his, I can't remember what they're called, their secret selections, the kind of compilations he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he released a track on there a little bit before, and I thought I'll just send him a few of these tracks and see if he's interested in doing an album. And he said yes. So after that, I was absolutely buzzing. I was just like, holy shit, I'm about to release an album on the same label as Hotel Pools, who was my idol at the time.
Sure.
So I was buzzing then, and then when it came out and what came after, which was a long period of sobriety, as I said, I listened to a few of the tracks, and I thought, holy shit, the production on them's awful. I think this is something artists have a lot of problem with. You can never. Nothing's ever perfect. You can't ever kind of perfect a track. You can only get it to a point and put it out there, because to you as the artist, it's never going to be perfect in my eyes anyway, and a lot of other artists say it as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, afterwards it was a mixed kind of thing. I did. A part of me wishes I would have spent longer on the polishing of the production elements of it, etc. But it is what it is now. It's kind of like a marker in my history, and it's there now. So not a lot I can do. But there's a few tracks like Polygon, for example, which I absolutely love, and I can't remember what the other one's called now. It's just a stupid name, something Recall, Chromatic Recall as well. That one I like quite a lot. So yeah, there's a few tracks which kind of shine to me, but I wish I could have spent a bit long on the other tracks, a bit longer. Okay, honey, I'll get it for you. Sorry.
You're fine. I also think it's important to mention that was your debut album, and from what I was able to see, that's it, right? Like that was your beginning. I think you had, what was it called? Nucleus? Is that what it's called?
God, that was even worse. Yeah, that was on a different label, and that was so bad.
Yeah, that was the only thing that was before Liminal. So
yeah,
understandably, it's not going to be near as polished as you'd like it to be, but I still think that it came out really well. And of course, it being released on Stratford is a huge fucking honor to have. So I think that's a really, really good starting point to have. And it kind of, at least from what I could tell, it led you to make Mercury and Alpha Waves, which are both absolutely fantastic, both in terms of production and style.
Yeah, no. Again, I really appreciate the comments. It does mean a lot when you get, when you hear stuff like that. So thank you. And you're right. Yeah, it did lead on to me, producing Mercury, which has a lot better production than Liminal. And there's a lot more tracks on that I like more than There's only one or two tracks now, which I think could have been better. So yeah, it did lead on to that, which was brilliant.
What do you think your biggest strengths and weaknesses are in terms of musical creation?
Okay, so I'll start with weaknesses. I would say music theory. That's going to make me sound like a terrible producer now, but music theory, and also the technical side of production. So obviously, when you produce a track, there's a lot of technicals. There's a big technical side of it, to make the drums punch, the bass line sit right in the right place in the kind of frequency spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always kind of struggled with that side of it, because I'm more kind of just like a free flow kind of creator. I just like getting on there and creating melodies and stuff. So the technical side of it's always been a bit of a weakness of mine. Knowing when to put a compressor on something, or when to EQ something and take the bass frequencies out or put them in, blah blah blah. So that's definitely a weakness of mine, the technical side of production. When I compare my tracks to Hotel Pools, it's just like, he's a master of production, like an absolute master. His tracks are so polished in terms of the technical production side. But I'd say a strength, my main strength, I would like to think is I always my melodies. I always like to have a decent melody. I find a lot of Chillsynth can be a bit what's the word? Kind of lacking any hook.
Yes.
I was remember this interview with Will I Am. I'm not into his music, but he makes a good point. And he said he was he was sending music to labels for years and years before he even got signed. And the labels always used to say to him, "Look, you've got no hook. There's no hook. You know, the track's there, but there's nothing in it." So, honey, I'll get to you in a sec. So kind of following on from that, you know, I think one of my strengths is melody writing, hooks, and also synth sound design. So coming up with decent synth sounds, you know, interesting synth sounds.
Yes, I 100% agree with your strengths. I think you excel in both of those, especially in what is starting to be a pretty, I would say, a well-known genre in the electronic sphere. It's becoming quite saturated. So I feel like you add a pretty fresh sound design to it.
Absolutely, you're spot on there. It is becoming very saturated. You know, everywhere I look now, everyone's kind of doing the same sounds. You know, kind of it's the genre is influencing itself now.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of never a good thing in a way, because it kind of becomes a bit incestual in terms of, you know, everyone trying to sound like the same thing, which can be a bit of an issue. But yeah, I always try and at least have something interesting in terms of the synth design and the sound design and that side of things.
You don't necessarily have to answer this, but
I'm sure.
how has been your experience with the labels? How has been your experience working with the labels that you've released with, which, from what I've researched, has just been Polycora and Stratford, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. That Nucleus EP was with a label, but that was just an EP, and it was they were a little kind of bedroom label. But yeah, in terms of Stratford and Polycora, you know, absolute professionals. You know, Nick's a good friend of mine, and he runs Polycora.
Yeah.
And Andrew of Stratford is an absolute professional. They're all extremely easy to work with. Really good guys, and yeah, I no complaints whatsoever. The process was fantastic. You know, Stratford they pay for everything. You know, you literally send them the tracks, they pay for all the production of the cassettes and vinyls or whatever. They pay all the promotion. You know, Andrew even does the artwork, etc. So it was a brilliant experience, to be honest.
That's awesome to hear. I know, at least for mainstream music, working with record labels is pretty daunting and can sometimes be a little predatory. So I'm glad to hear. I know that both of them are not massive labels, so they're still like pretty under the influence of like trying to make sure that their clients are taken care of. So I'm glad to hear that.
That's spot on. Yeah, you've got a you literally spot on with that. They care about the product they're putting out more than just trying to rinse rinse profits from people. So you know, while they're still small and they're still trying to service the community in that way, then I think it will still remain to be fine. You know, if the genre ever took off big time and the major labels start getting involved, then there might be a problem.
Do you regret releasing any of your albums due to like unsatisfactory production, poor reception, anything like that?
No, I wouldn't say it's to the point of regret. Just as I mentioned before, I would have done things slightly differently, taken a bit more time to polish them, but it doesn't quite get to the point of actually regretting it.
That's good. Okay. There was about a 2-year gap between the release of Liminal and Mercury. What were you doing in that time?
Oh, I was trying to run my new business basically. So yeah, in 2020 or middle of 2020, I started a new business, which kind of went crazy, absolutely crazy. So I was pretty much living at the office for what was essentially 2 years, and to be honest, that kind of it's not just that as well. I kind of have creative waves. So I'll have this kind of creative kind of wave come over me where I need, as I mentioned before, I need to produce and I need to create something, and then it can just disappear completely for a period of time. So, I'll be completely uninspired. Like right now, I'm completely uninspired. I'm supposed to be creating two. I've already got one, so two more tracks for Stratford to release Alpha Waves on vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
So we were gonna put a vinyl out with kind of 4 extra bonus tracks, 2 of which I've written, 2 of which I haven't. And I just haven't got any inspiration to finish it. There's just, I could probably force out something subpar, but I don't really want to do that. So, yeah, I would say it's due to the business and the fact that I kind of get creatively bankrupt sometimes.
I know you had mentioned previous that taking drugs was a source of creativity for you.
Yeah.
What do you think you could do in the future to kind of alleviate that? I don't want to call it a crutch, but
No, but it is. No, you're 100% right. That's exactly what it is. But yeah, that's a really good question. It's very hard, actually. I think sometimes maybe I just need to actually start, sit in front of FL Studio and actually start creating something, and that might actually trigger more creative juices to start flowing rather than just waiting for it to kind of appear. I could maybe try and kick it off a bit with actually, just trying to sit in front of it, see if anything comes. Because there's no way I can kind of rely on taking hard drugs every time I need to produce an album.
right, that's definitely not a sustainable way to to
Definitely not.
live.
Definitely not.
Um, that kind of leads me into this next one. What's like the driving force behind your passion to make music? Because I assume you do this out of a passion. Um, it's not just a force thing.
Yeah. There's definitely a passion there. So when I started getting some traction with some of my music, in the kind of liminal era, that's when I started kind of getting quite a lot of followers on SoundCloud and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Some of the comments I was getting from people were really kind of motivating. Some, just comments like, it was probably a joke, but some guy was like, "Oh, I used to listen to your music with my guinea pig, and he died recently. So listening to it again is, bringing back all the memories." It was probably half a joke, but getting comments like that, where people are actually kind of connecting with your music. There was a lot of other ones as well. I can't really remember. That one just kind of stuck in my mind.
Sure.
But yeah, just kind of getting the feedback from people who enjoy the music, and people who message me on Instagram, saying, "Oh, I absolutely love your stuff." And all that kind of stuff is really kind of motivating, because I never really thought it would get to that stage. When I used to create drum and bass, I never got anywhere with it at all. It was a complete dead end for me. So to actually have some traction and people really enjoying the music was a huge shock and surprise for me, and that kind of feeds my passion to make more.
Have you? I know you made drum and bass, and between the release of Mercury and Alpha Waves, you've kind of somewhat shifted your genre. Have you ever considered like I know Voyage, someone in Meme Gang, has a completely separate alias for making like drum and bass jungle music. Have you
Yeah,
ever
yeah.
considered doing that, like making a separate alias or releasing like just a completely different type of music?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Just again, really good questions, by the way. You should definitely take up interviewing as a career, because you're extremely good at it. But yeah, I actually during between Liminal and Mercury, it might have been after Mercury, I can't remember. I actually produced. One of my friends is a singer, and one of them's a rapper
Mhm.
or an MC, and we actually we made a UK garage track together. So it was she was kind of singing the kind of chorus hooks, and he had some verses doing some MC and
Mhm.
rapping, and we actually got it played on the UK national radio on Radio One here, which was
Wow,
absolutely crazy.
that's fucking
Yeah,
awesome.
I know. We submitted it to, because you can submit it to what's called Radio One Introducing,
Uh-huh.
and never thinking anything would happen. And yeah, we just got a call saying, right, we're scheduled to play on these days. I think it was like 3 or 4 days. And we're just blown away, absolutely blown away. I mean, I know in the States, obviously radio is more localized, isn't it, to certain regions? So you'll have kind of, more, I don't know if it's state-based or even kind of county-based radio. But in the UK, because we're so small as a country, Radio One
Mhm.
reaches the whole country. So
Sure.
everyone in the country picks that up. So radio is kind of a bigger thing here. And yeah, it was just crazy to have it played on kind of national radio, and we had really good feedback on that as well. Although we never actually released it. Yeah, so definitely, I am interested in creating other music as and when the opportunities come up.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And like, you said it was UK Garage, right?
Yeah, UK Garage. Yeah, so again, probably not over your side of the pond, but it's kind of similar to drum and bass, kind of like a slowed down version of drum and bass, I could say.
Okay.
Yeah, so about 138 BPM, whereas drum and bass is like 174. So it's kind of like slower than drum and bass, but has the same sort of elements, kind of heavy bass and that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah, that I know I'm kind of glazing, but that would definitely be something that I would happily listen to. Like if you decided to release even just an EP of something along the lines of that, that'd be really cool. Especially hearing the differences between your like Chillsynth kind of production and then turning it into something a little more upbeat or driven.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll put the link to the track on my SoundCloud in Meme Gang after this, so you can have a listen.
Yeah, for sure. Your collaborations have been a little you haven't done a whole lot. I think there was
Only one. Only one.
only one, and that was that the Resonance remix on Alpha Waves?
No, sorry, two collaborations actually.
Because
Yeah,
you have
sorry,
one
there's
with
two.
T100 on
Yeah,
Alpha Waves.
T120.
Or yeah.
So there's actually there's two technically. So what we me and T120, we did a proper collaboration on
Shifting.
what is that track called?
Shifting
That's
VIP.
it, mate.
Yep.
You know my catalog better than me. Well, so the original the original Shifting. So the VIP is a remix I did.
Mm-hmm.
But the original Shifting was done, by me and T120. We never actually released it other than on SoundCloud. But Stratford wanted to put it on one of his secret selections,
Okay.
but T120 didn't want to do it.
So is there someone that you would want to collaborate with in the future?
I mean, I would love to. I would love to collaborate with someone like Hotel Pools, but I think I would be completely outclassed and I would just probably fail. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, T120 is a fantastic producer. He's really young as well. Really young. I was so surprised when I found out. I'm talking a young teenager, and he is an incredible producer. Yeah, I know, crazy, right? And he's an insanely good producer. And it was and even being as young as he is, he was kind of leading the collaboration. He was saying, right, I think we should shift that down to a different key. I think we should change the melody up here, blah blah blah. And he was fantastic to work with. So yeah, I would say, all the main ones, Hotel Pools, people like that, I would probably enjoy doing it, although I'd probably feel a little bit intimidated as well at the same time.
Understandable. He's kind of the big dog in the space, that's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Him and Allison kind of have a hold on the balls on the whole like Chillsynth. So
They absolutely do. I mean, he's definitely he's definitely Stratford's cash cow.
That's for sure. Hey, and for good reason too. He makes some pretty damn good music and spits out an album, like at least one album a year, which is
I don't know how he does it. The guy's like a machine.
Yeah, and like there's no skimping on quality or anything. It's I love it whenever people are able to express themselves like that.
100%. Very talented guy.
You've kind of answered this already with Hotel Pools, and I guess I've kind of already asked this question, but who in your personal space has had a significant influence over your style and sound? Like the people that you interact with, not necessarily on a daily basis, but
So that's a good question as well, actually, because and I hate if he ever hears this, but Crystal Cola actually. So he kind of I started listening to a few of his tracks, and he had that kind of vaporwavy FM synth sort of sound,
Yeah.
which is he uses the Korg M1 VST, which is basically the Korg M1 is kind of a synth, hardware synth, and yeah, so the software version of that. And yeah, I just started kind of picking his brains about it, asking him where he kind of gets these sounds from and that. And yeah, he mentioned it to me, and I started kind of introducing a few bits like that into my tracks in alpha waves. So yeah, I'd say him definitely. Although, as I said, I wouldn't want him to hear that because he'd never let me live it down.
Nah, Crystal's a good guy. I'm sure he would appreciate that.
Yeah, no, he's a good guy, good friend.
What is the best piece of advice another musician has given to you?
Best piece of advice another musician has given to me. Okay, so this is it's kind of a technical piece of advice, actually, rather than kind of a broad piece of advice. But
Sure.
always sidechain your bass and your kick drum. So for years before producing, before Liminal, I didn't understand why my mixes, my tracks was sounding really muddy. There wasn't much clarity in any of the drums and bass elements. I couldn't figure it out. And then a friend of mine who's a producer as well, produces drum and bass. He's like, you're not sidechaining your kick drum and your bass. And what that basically means, obviously, I don't know if you know or not, but basically the bass and the kick drum occupy the same kind of frequency zone. That kind of deep bassy kind of frequency zone. And what that means is that the track, if they're both trying to occupy that same zone, it becomes really muddy in the mix. So what you do is you apply a sidechain, which basically every time the kick hits, it lowers the bass for a split second, and it allows them. And you don't notice it kind of in your ears, but it means that everything kind of shows through in the track. So yeah, I'd say that was the best advice I've got, although it's a little bit on the technical side.
I think that's fantastic. Most people's answer to that is probably going to be just some sort of like don't give up or some sort of like basic creativity stuff, but that's like an actual
Yeah.
like useful piece of advice. So
Yeah, and especially for new producers, because it's something that kind of you don't really realize until you do.
sure.
So it kind of shortcuts you to better sounding mixes.
What is the biggest hurdle that you've had to overcome that you didn't anticipate?
Biggest hurdle, I would say. Biggest hurdle. Ooh. I guess biggest hurdle. Okay, well, a bit of a left field one, I guess, but my own kind of, I guess I wouldn't say mental health, but more. I didn't realize that releasing an album kind of exposes you to the world in a way.
Sure.
Yes, okay. It kind of exposes you to the world. So when I first put out Liminal, I was absolutely terrified when it came to the release date. Like my stomach was just turning with nerves. Because for all I know, it might not have sold. I might have got some shit reviews, and that would have just killed me. I think that would have just ended my music career right there.
Sure.
So that was kind of an unexpected hurdle that came up. A few days before release, I was like, oh shit, people are actually going to have opinions about this, and it actually might hurt. But luckily, it sold out within Liminal sold out within 20 minutes, which I couldn't believe.
Damn.
And yeah, all the reviews were really good. So, but it's for every other album since then, it was exactly the same as well. It doesn't get any easier for me anyway. It was kind of nerves and worry every time. So, in terms of a hurdle, I guess it's actually the releasing of the album can be quite difficult to deal with mentally for me.
Yeah, I've never done anything on that type of scale. I cannot imagine the like mental anguish of just slowly anticipating it release. Like the date that it's coming out, like that's I can't even fathom that. That sounds
Yeah.
horrifying.
And it's something I didn't consider at all before it happened, and then as you said, it started kind of creeping up day by day, and I was just getting kind of more nervous every day because I'm not a wholly, I'm one of those people who's what's the word? I don't know the word for it, but I've never really liked showing my art to people. It was just something that I kind of did, until someone was interested in putting it out. So
Sure.
it was a kind of shock to the system.
What caused you to reach out to Stratford?
It was purely because that they are the big label, and it was kind of like when I first started producing music, it seemed impossible for me to be on Stratford. It just seemed impossible. There was no chance that was ever going to happen. So I sent him a few tracks for it. This was way before Liminal, before he released one for the Secret Selection as well.
Uh-huh.
And he gave me some really good feedback on it. He was like, I really like the synth tones, but I'm not feeling it, blah blah blah, because of this. So I was like, no, cool, no worries. But he's like, just keep sending me tracks. He's like, don't not send me any because I'm interested in you as an artist. And he started kind of liking more of my tracks on SoundCloud and stuff, and making comments and stuff. So it kind of pushed me more to send them. I sent him. I sent him. Can't remember the name of the track, but one that he released on Secret Selection, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'll put it out. It's going to be out on tape, blah blah blah." And it was just like, "Wow, I can't believe it." I never thought I would ever be able to release on this label, along with Hotel Pools, etc., etc. And then it kind of happened. It was mind blowing, really, for me.
Interesting. That's.
I kind of forgot the question now. I don't know if I actually answered it.
No, that absolutely. It was what made you reach out to them. And it was just kind of on a whim.
His feed. Yeah, it was originally on a whim, and then kind of his feedback on it kind of pushed me to keep sending him tracks, which is but he's a really nice guy like that. So
that's another point for them, because they've released so much good music, and they release it with such regularity. Like I'm glad they're giving artists their chance. So
exactly that, and that's why for Liminal, I basically said to him, keep all the profits from Liminal, because I want you to be able to help other artists. Sorry, honey. Scooter. Yeah, so I basically said to him, look, the fact that you took a chance on me and put this album out, which was what I always wanted. I always wanted to be on this label. Just keep everything and use that for the next artist you want to bring up.
With your relative success at a gradual rate with each release, what has been the most challenging thing to come to terms with?
Kind of thing to come to terms with. I guess it's not really been much. Trying to think. I guess the most challenging thing to come to terms with me is that I'm never going to be producing music as good as the people the people like Hotel Pool. So it was always a goal for me to release on the same label as them. That was like, I kind of reached a huge goal in my life there, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then kind of listening to their stuff more and more and thinking, I'm never actually going to be as good. Is kind of, I guess, was difficult to come to terms with. But at the end of the day, not everyone can be the best.
Right. Yeah, that's understandable. Yeah.
Because I can be a bit of a perfectionist in terms of achieving what I want to achieve. So obviously to realize that you're never going to be kind of top of the scene or whatever, was a little bit, a little bit of a kind of issue in my mind. But I have to kind of, like I said, tell myself that there's got to be space for people who aren't the top of the scene. Otherwise it would be just crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't imagine that was your goal initially, was to be at the top of the scene. It was just to kind of be a creative outlet, right?
Exactly. But it's like anything. It's like, these billionaires who make loads of money, and you think to yourself, why don't you just retire to a desert island or on a yacht or something? But they have to kind of keep doing better and better and better. And it's this kind of human instinct to want to always outdo what you've done previously.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess that.
Just a couple more, and then we're good.
Cool.
How has with each release, how has that impacted your ability to experiment with new sounds? Because there's a pretty drastic change between liminal and mercury, and then mercury and alpha waves. There's a pretty,
Yeah,
I would say, a pretty significant difference in sound between those.
yeah. Again, like you've been through this whole thing, you are absolutely spot on. So I've got this thing right where the I physically cannot produce something that sound, or I try to avoid sounding like I previously sounded. So when I came out with liminal, I knew that I had to create a new kind of sound for Mercury, because or at least to some extent a new sound, within Mercury, because and I think a lot of artists get this, to kind of repeat yourself is not very creatively fulfilling.
Sure.
You kind of feel like you're retreading old ground, and it doesn't really hit the right spot. So so for Mercury, obviously, I wanted to do something very different, or something different, but still within the kind of Chillsynth thing. And then for Alpha Waves, I really wanted to kind of push that boundary with the vaporwave sort of stuff to make it different. So I kind of pushed the boundaries with that, and now I'm kind of at an impasse where I'm not sure where to kind of push the sound to next for my next album. Although there are some artists which I think are quite are pushing the boundaries, which I'm liking at the moment. Like, have you heard of Pastel Graphics?
I have not.
Oh, okay, worth checking out. The guy really is producing some interesting sounding stuff. That's kind of departing from the normal chill synth sound. He's on Stratford as well. So I kind of want to go in a direction, not the same direction as him, but in an original direction like him. But I
Sure.
just kind of need to figure out in my mind what that's going to be.
Okay. Where do you see yourself in about 3 to 5 years? Do you see yourself still producing? I know creativity has been kind of a rough spot for you.
Yeah, I would say I will continue to produce as and when the mood strikes me. It's never kind of been the main focus of my life, because, well, I don't know if anyone really makes enough money to live in this music scene. Maybe Hotel Pools, but or Alison, they probably do. But it's never going to be a kind of career path for me. But yeah, I think it'll always be there on the side. So yeah, in the next 2 to 5 years, I imagine. In the next 2 to 5 years, I would have hoped I could put out another album and maybe finish the tracks for the vaporwave for the Alpha Waves vinyl. That would be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's perfectly reasonable, especially because you have a pretty dedicated job and you're doing well on that front. So
Yeah, exactly.
all right, and then the final question I have for you: who do you think up and coming is going to change the landscape of the chill synth genre?
So I'm going to go with the guy I mentioned previously, the Pastel Graphics.
Okay,
His stuff is so unique. Honestly, you should definitely check it out.
will do.
His stuff. I mean, his production. As I mentioned before, the technical side of his production is just unbelievable. It creates such a crisp new kind of sound and feeling. All right, honey, 2 secs. So yeah, I would say him. Really, I really like where he's going with it, and also who was that other artist I saw? Can't remember his name now. Can't remember his name. One sec. So I think. Yes, darling. Okay, I'll come back in. Yeah. So yeah, I would definitely say. Pastel Graphics. I'll
Mhm.
link you to his album Vector Fields on Stratford. Obviously, you can just listen to the tracks on Bandcamp for free, can't you? So
Okay,
you can get a feel for what I'm talking about. The specific track would be, is it Data Lake?
I'll probably check
Yeah,
out the whole album. So
yeah. Oh, fair play. But yeah, Data Lake specifically, that track is just something else. I really love it. So I would say him.
okay, awesome. Ed, I appreciate your taking time out of your day to have this with me. Hopefully, it was somewhat fruitful.
No, it really was. Honestly, I'm totally honest saying this. You are a fantastic interviewer. You should maybe start a YouTube, because I don't think there's a lot of kind of real music journalism in this scene in any way, or not that I'm aware of anyway. So, you could really carve out a nice niche, interviewing artists in this scene and putting them on YouTube and stuff, because your questions are fantastic. I didn't, no offense, I didn't expect them to be that good. They were really well thought out, questions that triggered things in me, which were like, wow, that's really, really interesting.
That means a lot. Thank you.
You've got a real talent for it, because I would never have been able to think up of questions as good as that.
I really try. I have another interview scheduled at about a week, and I really want to I'd like to do deep dives on people. Like for the last I don't know, week and a half or so, I've listened to your whole catalog front to back probably 3 or 4 times. So
amazing.
Is there anything else that you want to say before we hop off?
Who's what artist are you going to be interviewing?
Vayu, from Wave Racers Collective. He makes a couple different things, but he's mostly known for like his electronic progressive rock influenced. I don't know. It's really hard to define it into one category. And then he also makes like vapor trap. So
okay, yeah, I've definitely heard of him, 100%. I've heard of those the Wave Racers Collective as well. I've seen him on Instagram and stuff like that. So that should be interesting. Well, good luck with it. And as I mentioned, keep it up, because I think this scene is calling out for some real music journalism and and this sort of thing. So awesome.
Right, Ed, I appreciate it. I'll if I do end up posting this to YouTube, I'll send you a link, and I'll make sure to link all of your socials in the description. So
amazing, brilliant, great speaking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. See you later, mate. Bye.
See ya.